100 by 100 plot of land, legal fees and transfer costs inclusive. This is a gated control development property with water and electricity on site. We offer free site visit every Wednesday and Saturday. Visit our offices in Kitengela Pena Towers first floor. Contact us on 0721 737300 or SMS the word plot to 40309. Title deeds are ready. Finca Properties Limited, prime and affordable.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Good evening, glad that you're watching us on the county's television. On the news tonight. Tonight, the famous handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga now on shaky ground as ODM reads double cross from Jubilee. We shall tell you why. Also tonight, what is ailing our learners? Bad behavior or trauma caused by the ravage of COVID-19? Tonight we have the answers for you. And Interior CS Fred Matiang'i warns bandits terrorizing Kapedo that they will not know what hit them once government machinery begins what he calls an unprecedented operation. Ann Wairimu is our sign language interpreter. TV47 News Tonight with me, Abubakar Abdullahi, begins right now. Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i now says that security apparatus in Kapedo area are in hot pursuit of criminals who murdered a senior GSU officer on Monday. Also in the wanted list are several political leaders who Matiang'i says have been fanning and funding violence in the volatile Kapedo area. Our reporter Mwangi Maina begins our broadcast tonight.
These are the scenes at the infamous Kapedo, the border between West Pokot and Baringo County, that has claimed tens of lives for years on end, including police officers, the latest being Emadau Temako, a GSU Deputy Operations Director killed Monday in cold blood at this very same border of death. Military trucks, police choppers and foot soldiers combing through every nook and cranny to bring Kapedo murder perpetrators to book. After this an unprecedented security operation, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i says Kapedo will become a shadow of its former self. The glory of murder, cattle rustling and banditry will long be gone, he insists.
That part of our country has been very costly to us in the security sector. We have lost security officials there. We have lost Ngao officials there. We have lost innocent Wananchi. And there is a culture in that part of our country which seems to protect negative and criminal armament that disguises, first of all, as cat rustling, but in actual fact, it is funded. And I want to say this, it is funded.
Matiang'i says Kapedo violence is a well-orchestrated plan, funded war and chaos by local leaders who then hide under the guise of cattle rustling. He has now put the leaders on notice and he says their days are nigh.
We are in hot pursuit of certain people, including leaders. And I want to assure the country on this particular score, we are going to act very decisively. And we will make sure that those who are involved in that are facilitated to meet with the law. Because that will not happen. And then by the time we are done with what we are doing there, it will be a story to be told in generations to come when there will be no such violence in that place.
Even as Matiang'i insists that the operation will only be called off after the last criminal has been brought to book, officers will indubitably be faced by several hurdles brought about by Kapedo's rough and unforgiving terrain. Bandits have mastered the art of cornering security officers in the deep valleys of Kapedo. Air surveillance is currently being conducted to flush out bandits.
They asked for us to move there. We have moved our policing resources there, and we are going to increase very stiff resources in that part of the country. I am asking those who know those people who murdered our senior police officer to surrender them. But if they don't want to surrender them, we will still go for them. We will look for them. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take us. And it does not matter what resources we are going to use. We will get them and bring them to justice.
Petroleum and Mining CS John Munyes attributes the Kapedo violence to boundary and land disputes and not cattle rustling as local leaders postulate.
Tumeshindwa kuamua mipaka yetu. Serikali ije iamue mara moja. Na ndio shida.
The Interior Ministry has also trained its eyes on the northeastern region, which has also faced several banditry attacks. Matiang'i and his team have vowed to wipe out criminal elements in the area brought about by conflicts over pasture, water, and boundary disputes.
Mainly has been the sharing of pasture and water, and the conflicts around them, including some element of cattle rustling. And we have agreed that as leaders, we should take the leadership to come together as leaders of Garissa and Wajir and ensure that our people continue to live in peace.
So we have taken responsibility to work together and ensure peaceful coexistence of our people, because these are the same people, Kenyans.
Matiang'i was speaking after a high-level meeting with elected leaders from Northeastern and the Inspector General of Police at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i now says the spate of violence witnessed in the northeastern region has something to do with the 2022 polls. Matiang'i now promising an unprecedented security operation that will lead to the disarmament of all the armed bandits in northeastern region. Mwangi Maina, TV47 from KICD, Nairobi.
To some politics now, and ODM party leader Raila Odinga has reiterated that the handshake agreement between him and President Uhuru Kenyatta is intact despite fears of Odinga's ODM walking out of the 3-year deal. Raila spoke during an ODM housekeeping meeting that had been convened in Nairobi earlier today. David Mudhoka has the details.
In an ODM housekeeping meeting convened earlier today and attended by the party's top brass, among them Deputy Party leaders Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya, ODM party leader Raila Odinga has fended off claims that the handshake deal between him and President Uhuru Kenyatta is hanging in the balance. This comes barely days after Siaya Senator James Orengo warned that the ODM party would not think twice while initiating a divorce from its handshake partners within the ruling Jubilee Party if the latter's incessant intimidation does not come to an end. But Raila, in the meeting that saw journalists barred from accessing, has maintained that there is no cause for alarm and that the handshake will withstand the test of time. But the very handshake could yet again face another acid test in the coming days, with both Jubilee and ODM Party set to unveil their pick for the Nairobi Deputy Governor position if Anne Kananu Mwenda is sworn in as Nairobi's third governor. This contradicts various instances in the past where either ODM or Jubilee has opted out of an election to pave the way for the other. ODM has since announced that it will make its pick public on Wednesday, while Jubilee is said to have chosen Dennis Waweru to take over as the city's second-in-command. David Mudhoka, TV47, Nairobi.
Elsewhere, clinical officers and nurses union in Mombasa County held their weekly demonstrations demanding the Ministry of Health and the county government to sign their return to work formula. The health workers are accusing the county bosses of ignoring their plight, as Fatma Ngwena now reports.
Just a few days after the Mombasa County government reached a consensus with the county's doctors who had been on strike for almost 2 months and signed the return to work formula, clinical officers and nurses now want the county government to reach an agreement with them before resuming work.
What we are calling for is basically a risk allowance. We've not asked for any salary increment. We are asking for a risk allowance by virtue of what we do.
The health workers have also criticized some counties which have sacked their striking colleagues and condemned the chair of Council of Governors, Wycliffe Oparanya, for failing to respond to the health crisis.
Again, if he says that they don't have money, hii pesa si ya mama yake, hii pesa ni yetu tumelipa kodi. So he should not be there telling us that he will not pay because he does not have money. Pesa ni yetu tumelipa kodi, and even that man that we have paid, zingine ni hizo ambazo amekatalia.
The furious health workers have accused Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho of prioritizing politics at the expense of the health sector, and they now want President Uhuru Kenyatta to intervene.
If they have money, if they can go to China to borrow money to come and do dubious projects, let them borrow money to pay us. We equally deserve a cake.
The strike, which has now entered its 11th week in Mombasa, continues with the nationwide health workers strike, with the health workers vowing to carry on with the strike until their grievances are met.
Tunahitaji bima iliyo na haki. Tunahitaji allowances ambazo zitaweza kutukimu hata maisha yetu yana maana.
In Taita Taveta County, patients continue to suffer following the ongoing strike.
Mimi ningeomba tu serikali ipate kuangalia hili swala la madaktari, kwa sababu madaktari ni muhimu sana, na tukiangalia watu wengi wanaumia sana kwa sababu ya mgomo yao. Kama huyu sasa hatuna uwezo, tunaumia, ambapo sasa kama madaktari wangekuwa kazini, at least ninajua angekuwa tayari sasa ashapata msaada.
Fatma Ngwena, TV47.
To matters education now, and news of students attacking teachers and their peers. Another one trying to commit suicide, and another case of people who tried to poison her father have all raised eyebrows as to what could be the force behind the bizarre happenings in school. Now, psychologists tonight say that the cases have been amplified by effects of COVID-19, as learners could have gone through traumatic experiences while at home and they are venting their emotions. Our senior education affairs reporter Sharon Baranga with the details.
It is barely a month since learners reported to school after months of being away. On these first days of the second term in the school calendar, it was expected that learners and their teachers will be settling in school as they prepared to hit the road running, trying to cover up time that was lost last year. But this will not be so for some learners from a few learning institutions in the country. This is because instead of being in school, they are guests of the state. They are being charged with attempted murder. At Kisii Law Courts, a Form 3 student from Kisii School has been charged with attempted murder after attacking 2 of his teachers by stabbing. The 17-year-old student appeared before Kisii Senior Resident Magistrate Steve Onjoro and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of attempted murder. The incident took place on 12th January.
COVID came, nobody was prepared. Many never knew what the impact of this particular pandemic could be like. And when you look at this, the pandemic came to expose the rotten structures or even the dysfunctional in the family system, all right? And in this particular case, you find that so many young people were abused, exposed to a lot of trauma. And out of this, that's why you find that some of them, they retaliate and they tend to be reactive in such a way they end up harming another person. So there's a lot of anger that has been built within them, and they only wait for that moment where there's a trigger for them to just explode and express how they feel.
Relatives of the injured teachers now want the government to provide security to teachers.
Sasa naomba serikali ichunge walimu kwa sababu kwa sababu watoto wa leo ni watoto wabaya sana.
We are grateful that our family member is alive, but we want to appeal that teachers need to be protected, they need to be safe, so that their welfare is well known, because students who've joined school, they also need to be taken through to be given some form of psychosocial support, because some have gone through various challenges over these 9 months.
The World Health Organization had actually predicted that in the year 2020, mental health will be the leading cause of death among the young people. The mental health conditions that are actually affecting these young people. And when you look at the COVID, this came just to amplify the magnitude of these effects. It doesn't mean that this was not happening before then, all right? But remember, COVID came with a lot of pressure. There was a lot of disruption in terms of the routines.
The student was released on a 50,000 shillings cash bail or a bond of 100,000 shillings. The magistrate directed the suspect to be remanded at Manga Children's Home pending a pre-trial on 27th January 2021. There are people who are pointing an accusing finger to parents, saying they did not discipline their children.
A lot of disruption in terms of the routines. And when you find that children they were sent home, away from their daily routines, where there was a lot of structure, order, and discipline at school. And when they went back home, they found a place where everybody else is stressed out. Okay, so this just amplified the whole issue, because you find that somebody who didn't have a balance in life in terms of managing their own issues, when they found parents who are not doing well in terms of, say, the workplace, most of them were chased away from their workplace. They were sent home. So you find that most of them, they had a lot of hurt. They were going through some sort of loss, say, opportunities at the workplace. Some lost their loved ones. And out of this, you find that this found its way to the young children, or even the ones that are going back to school in this particular time.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigation says that another student from renowned boys' secondary school in Vihiga is facing murder charges after he assaulted and killed the school's guard. The DCI's report says the student became unruly and attacked other students using a metal rod. When the guard, identified as Willie Mukonambi, intervened, the student then turned on him and hit him on the head severally. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries while undergoing treatment at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital. The incidences are happening a few days after a university student is suspected to have been involved in the murder of his family. Psychologists are advising school administrators to ensure all learners are counseled as they settle in school. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
Let's concentrate on this.
Thank you, our senior education affairs reporter Sharon Baranga, for that. You're watching TV47 News Tonight with me, Abubakar Abdullahi. Keep talking to us. Time for us to take a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories. What's the perfect way to kickstart? When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. the tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant, and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant, and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
For families and business.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
nyaligolfview.com.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You are watching TV47 News Tonight with me, Abu Bakar Abdullahi. Let's get to more news now. And the battle for the Matungu and Kabuchai parliamentary seats has kicked off as aspirants presented their nomination certificates to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, ahead of the March 4th polls. And as John Maina now reports, political showdown is expected between the recently launched United Democratic Alliance, UDA, affiliated to Deputy President William Ruto, and opposition-affiliated parties.
Evans Kakai, who is flying DP Ruto's UDA party flag in Kabuchai, presented his nomination certificates to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) Tuesday morning for his verification and clearance. DP Ruto allies expressing confidence that the recently launched party will clinch Kabuchai seat.
Sisi hatutapigana, sisi hatutaki kutumia mambo ya kukatana mapanga vile yao wameendelea kusema. Na by the way tulisema sisi hatuchawacha mikono nyumbani. Wakileta fujo hiyo itakuwa ni shauri yao.
Kakai promised to hold peaceful campaigns ahead of the March 4th mini polls.
Muda ambao tuko nao katika hii Kabuchai ni mwaka moja peke yake. Ukipeleka mbunge ambaye ataanzia kusoma kutokea nursery hataweza kumaliza standard 8 kwa hii mwaka moja.
In Kakamega County, ODM party has continued drumming up support for David Were after he presented his nomination certificates to IEBC. ODM leaders led by Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, James Orengo and Junet Mohamed have said that they are confident the party will win the seat.
Na tutafanya hii campaign kwa njia ambaye inaambatana na sheria. Tutafanya hii campaign kwa njia ya upole. Tutafanya hii campaign kwa njia ya kuongelesha watu.
Campaigns are in top gear with IEBC promising a free and fair poll. Joan Maina, TV47.
Well, Nyamira County MCAs have rejected the nomination of James Gesami to be the deputy governor for Nyamira. This makes a big blow to the newly installed Nyamira governor Amos Nyaribo, who had appointed Gesami to deputize him. The county assembly ruled that Gesami, a former member of parliament, is not fit to run the office of the deputy governor, thus rejecting his appointment.
And I will do justice to all in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of Kenya without fear, favor, affection, or ill will. So help me God.
Moving on, police were forced to intervene at the funeral of Ruri Ward Representative John Mburu after members of parliament allied to Deputy President William Ruto allegedly stormed the burial. Religious leaders in Nyandarua County issued a sanction to political leaders not to address religious gatherings until local leaders resolve their county assembly disputes.
Leo hii tumefika hapa kwa heshima za Mheshimiwa Mburu. Tafadhali hizo heshima turudishie kanisa ndio waweze kupeleka program mbele, na vile gavana amesema, mimi nisimame pamoja na watu wa Nyandarua tukisema ni kweli tunapenda wageni, lakini pia kama tunapenda wageni tunamheshimu mwenda zake.
Kuchafua hii mjadala kusema ati ni maskini wanapigana na matajiri. Mambo ya hasola haiko mambo ya matajiri na mambo ya maskini. Hapana, tuko na mahasola ambaye ni matajiri. Maana ya hii mahasola ni kusema mtu ambaye hakuzaliwa kwa nyumba kubwa, hakuzaliwa kwa nyumba iko na mali, ameweka bidii yake yeye mwenyewe na kuomba Mwenyezi Mungu, amefanya kazi na bidii mpaka amepata mali.
Hatujui BBI, tunasema kwanza tuambiwe sisi watu wa Nyandarua what is there for us in BBI. Na sasa hapa kwetu Nyandarua hiyo tumeikataa. Ikiwa ni watu wale wengine wanafaidika na sisi hapa Nyandarua hatufaidiki, tunasema BBI this time hapana.
Moving on, farmers remained reluctant to deliver their maize to NCPB depot in Eldoret despite an upward review of prices from 2,500 shillings to 2,700 shillings per 90 kg bag. According to the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture and Moiben Member of Parliament Silas Teren, Most farmers have lost interest in doing business with the government following corruption scandals that hit NCPB 3 years ago.
After refusing to sell their maize produce to the National Cereals and Produce Board NCPB last year, citing poor prices, maize farmers remain unmoved. And prices may not be the only impediment. Corruption scandals that rocked the NCPB 3 years ago are the other setback.
Waharakishe walipe ile watu wenye hawakuwa na kesi. Wale wengine wenye walikuwa na kesi, ile kitu tumekubaliana na tumeomba pia through registrar kuwa kesi yao ikimbishwe haraka iwezekanavyo, so that tujue ile kitu tunaweza fanya baada ya hiyo, because hatuwezi kuwa tunazuia hao maneno yao, hatuwezi lipa hao, na kesi pia imechukua muda mrefu sana.
Some of the farmers were subjected to investigations by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI and Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC for the produce they supplied towards government strategic food reserve program and are yet to be paid.
Hawakuwa na kesi, pesa ilireleasiwa na treasury na ikaenda kwa ministry, na mpaka saa hii sijaona wameanza kulipwa, na tulikuwa tumekubaliana kuwa wiki jana ingetakuwa hiyo process ya kulipa watu iwe imeanza.
Only a day after the price of maize was increased by 200 shillings per 90 kilogram bag to 2,700 shillings, and the NCPB board assuring payment within 24 hours of supply of maize, farmers still fear that delays may occur.
Kuproduce one bag inakarimu shilingi 2,800 hata 3,000. Kwa hivi sasa hata 2,700 pato yuko chini sana, sababu uchapikisa hata ya produce one bag, sababu one bag ni 28-29.
There is little activity at the NCPB depot in Eldoret, with most farmers keeping off the premise and preferably selling their produce to private millers.
But we are praying for the government to see if they can add some extra to reach even around 3,000. That is our expectation.
Wakati fulani ilikuwa watu wakubwa wa serikali walikuwa wakifanya biashara ili wa compete na sisi, lakini tunaonelea kwamba wakati huu sisi wakulima ndio tunapigania maneno ya mazao yetu.
Many of them still fear a repeat of the 2019 maize scandal, where genuine farmers saw delay of payment, some still unpaid to date. Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Uasin Gishu County.
And from the country's North Rift, thank you, Calvin Chitwa, for that report. You're watching the county's television. Keep talking to us. Send us a message on 22047. Time for us to take another short break. We'll be back right after this break.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
Welcome back. Let's get to the country's coast, where a section of hoteliers in Taita Taveta have expressed their goodwill and interest in the government tourism stimulus package, which aims to revamp the tourism sector. However, the hoteliers are concerned that very few applications from Taita Taveta were successful. The government launched the stimulus package to cushion hoteliers from the devastating effects that COVID-19 caused.
On the highway, just before you get to...
Nafikiri tukirudi nyuma mwaka wa 2020 mwaka tunataka tusahau kwa haraka. Things have been very difficult for the industry, almost impossible to survive with of course things which nobody had control over. But now what the government has come up with, I think this is a very good program, and the money, I think we will make sure we apply for the money. 50 million is not little money, and also the interest of 5% I think is a brilliant idea. We need to start looking at our properties also, not only the hotels which are in the park, outside the park. We need to give them a breath of fresh air.
Mradi huu wa tourism stimulus package ni maelezo ambayo nafikiri yatatusaidia sana tukienda mbele katika kuhakikisha kwamba zile applications zetu tutakazotumana zitaweza kupita ule mtihani wa kwanza na tuweze kupata pesa ili tuimarishe hotel zetu, kuzifanya ziwe kwamba wateja watazifurahia zaidi.
Tulikuwa tunaendelea na mama majengo yakakwama njiani, wafanyikazi tuliwaondoa wote tukawapeleka manyumbani kwa sababu hatuna pesa kuwalipa. Na kwa sababu hii semina sasa, kama tutawajibika na tufaulu, ni kwamba mambo zetu sasa za kutayarisha kupata wageni ambao kuanzia hawa hapo nyumbani.
Moving on, Murang'a County Commissioner Mohamed Barre has promised to form a committee which will fast-track the title deeds for schools which are within the controversial Kakuzi Horticulture Company farm. According to Barre, the committee will aid in ending the persisting differences in the fight for the controversial land.
And we have agreed is we create a committee because we need title deed for all the schools or leases for all the schools that are located within Kakuzi land. So we create a committee where the land registrar and the DC will represent the national government, and we get the county director of education and even the CEC education to represent the county government. We create a committee that will sort out the issue of pending title deeds for our learning institutions once and for all. And I hope by so doing, we will be able to achieve harmonious coexistence between the organization and the community.
Let's get to Rwanda, where Rwandan capital Kigali has been placed under total lockdown following what the government says is a sharp rise in new COVID-19 infections. The move comes a day after Rwandan President Paul Kagame chaired a cabinet meeting with proposed strict guidelines in place to slow down the spread of COVID-19. Our reporter Diana Iriza reports from Kigali, Rwanda.
The communique noted that citizens are urged to significantly reduce social interactions and limit movement to essential services. Information from the Rwanda Biomedical Center indicates that Kigali accounts for 61% of COVID-19 cases reported in the country since January 1st this year. Under the lockdown in Kigali, unnecessary movements, including visits outside the home, are prohibited except for essential services, which include medical, food, shopping, banking, among others. Both public and private transport are prohibited in Kigali, but the rest of the country will be allowed to use the facilities. However, transportation of food and essential goods will continue to function. While city schools, including universities, suspended classes for 2 weeks since January 17th, schools outside Kigali will continue learning with adherence to the COVID-19 measures. The schools include lower primary students that reported back to school on Monday, January 18th, after nearly 10 months of closure. To further strengthen the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, employees will for the next 2 weeks be encouraged to work from home. Only essential service providers will be allowed to work from their offices. To facilitate tourists to and from the country, among other factors, Kigali International Airport will remain open. However, arriving passengers must present a negative PCR taken in the past 120 hours prior to the first departure, while deporting passengers have to present a negative PCR before they leave the country. Diana Iriza, Kigali, Rwanda.
Thank you, our Kigali-based reporter Diana Iriza, for that. You're watching TV 47 News Tonight with me, Abu Bakar Abdullahi. Time for us to get to the world of sports now. Let's bring in sportsman Dennis Otieno, who is with us tonight. Dennis, United will want to be the leaders of the English Premier League after Chelsea plays tonight.
I always like it when you bring, when you just mention the name Manchester United, knowing that it's the great club that tops the English Premier League table currently. Now, of course, you said Chelsea are playing tonight. They're playing against Leicester City. We hope that Chelsea win that match because Leicester City are currently second, trailing Manchester United by just a few points, I think 2 or 3 points. So every Manchester United fan right now is hoping that Chelsea are going to win that match.
Do you believe fourth-placed Chelsea, if I am not wrong, will win and defeat second-place title favorite Leicester City?
I mean, this is a very, difficult fixture to predict. Both sides are, in top form, having great talent among their ranks. The likes of Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, Kai Havertz for Chelsea are very great. And also, when you focus on Leicester, you see that they have Jamie Vardy, the players who are really on top form, and James Maddison, who can score at any time. So it's a match that can go either way, a match